Just to get started on who we are, I'm Ana. My partner name is Jesus, and we are both, two Spaniards who have been living in Germany for the last sort of 10 years almost. We are sharing our life with one cat. By now it's 2 cats, but because it's back then it was only 1. And Jesus suffered encephalitis in April 2022. Just to set the scene a little bit, we could say that we had a rough period starting in 2020, as likely everyone. With the COVID pandemic, we barely went back to Spain, which meant we hadn't seen our families in almost 2 years, or at least not as often as we would have liked to. And things were starting to take a turn to positive starting 2022. Jesus had taken on a new job opportunity. I was preparing for an important concert. Both of us are hobby enthusiasts. I am big on music. Jesus likes sports. So for me, it was a very important date. And we had a week of vacation planned for right after the concert. However, about a week before that concert, Jesus started acting weird. He would be messy, he would be forgetful, he would act very stressed about minor things, which isn't like his personality. And then I just assumed, or we both assumed somehow, it must be stress from his new job. He needs the holiday, he needs to go back to home for a few days, see his family. Unfortunately, those were the symptoms that something wasn't well. He was suffering from encephalitis, and that was only evident to us when he first went to the hospital. By then, he had evident memory loss, short memory loss. He wouldn't know what he had said 13 seconds ago. He was very repetitive, and still he would refuse to go to the hospital because he was set on going back home. So on the diagnosing part, luckily a good friend of us helped me. We convinced him into going to the hospital. He also was very helpful in guiding us through the first steps of getting to hospital. Like, for instance, he suggested immediately that we go to a university hospital where they do research, which is very important, I think, in terms of getting the right diagnosis for encephalitis. And when we were there, the ER doctor immediately asked for several tests, one of them being a lumbar puncture, which helped to diagnose 2 hours later that he was suffering a brain inflammatory process. That's, so to say, the spoken name of encephalitis in German. But they weren't clear about the origin, and therefore they couldn't suggest a treatment. For me, all I knew about the disease back then was the German explanation of the name. Jesus had to remain hospitalized, still suffering from severe short memory loss, and I just went back home and remained there. Unfortunately, this was 2022. Back then in Germany, the doctors were still quite overloaded with different pandemic rules that they had to follow. I wasn't allowed to visit. It was very difficult to get them on the phone, to talk to them, find out different procedures that were being done, and asking Jesus was, sorry, a bit useless, because he would still suffer from real severe memory loss. And I just put a picture there of a Milka chocolate bar to share a little anecdote. Easter was approaching, so I just thought of cheering him up, and I gave him a 300-gram Milka chocolate bar that he ate within, I guess, 2 hours that afternoon, because whenever he would open the drawer, he would find a chocolate bar in there, and he would eat a little piece. and the nurse who was measuring his blood levels later that day was shocked, like, okay, what happened this afternoon? Yeah. It was a difficult period for me because at the same time that I barely understood what was going on, everyone from our circle was reaching out to me to get explanations, family members and friends. So in the hospital, they tested for herpes. They started the treatment for herpes. All the results came back negative, and then after 4 days of regular tests, in the end, they went for an autoimmune encephalitis, and they also followed that treatment procedure. And they continued doing tests for another 3 weeks that he remained in hospital, thinking that potentially the cause could be a brain tumor that hadn't developed yet, but yeah. All the tests came back negative, and in the end, he just was released after they tested that the inflammation process had stopped. And that's where the recovery process started, which was like a real roller coaster, I would say. Jesus was very confused when he came back home. There was no inflammation, but all of the previous symptoms remained, which meant that the memory loss was still pretty severe. Only he wouldn't realize. It made it a bit difficult into dealing with daily tasks. Yeah, we didn't get a clear statement about how long the recovery process would take, or if these symptoms would go away. But all the doctors were carefully optimistic because he was so young, and yeah. Even if they couldn't tell me how long it would take, if I'm very honest, I don't think I would have been able to take it. So, yeah. I must say a big thank you to all the professionals we encountered. They were excellent in helping us the best they could. The social worker at the hospital got Jesus into a rehabilitation clinic. You see it up there. He was there for almost 2 months, and then right afterwards, when he came out, we got different doctors, different therapists to help him recover. Among them, I would name very importantly psychological help, neuropsychological also help, and sport therapy. It's very important, actually, to continue to do sport or do any sort of body movement to help your brain recover also. And I also have to say thank you to the Encephalitis International. Back then it was Encephalitis Society, because when I was still through the recovery and also while he was at the hospital, I consumed many resources from the website. I read many testimonials, and it was really a huge source of support for me back then. I would say the recovery process was huge effort, mentally, physically, and also for our relationship. Jesus had to work really hard to get where he's at. He was very frustrated at times. For me, it meant also a huge take on coordinating the different medical therapies which were widespread across the region. So it meant a lot of agenda coordination and driving back and forth without even really knowing if my partner would actually be back as I knew him. And during this phase, I have to say I'm also very thankful for the support we got from friends. You see them there in the middle visiting Jesus. And also the support that my parents gave us throughout this period, because without them it wouldn't have been possible to I would say to manage through this. I want to share a resource that Jesus neurologist shared with us. It's relatively well known. It has been criticized, it has been reviewed, but at least for me it was helpful in terms of finding a line or place in my emotions, at least throughout this journey. It's the 5 stages of grief. I think everyone has seen this at some point. If not, I just listed it here. It's not a linear journey that you follow. You can jump back and forth. Every grieving process is differently, but what was important for me to realize is that I wasn't really grieving a death, but I was going still through a grieving process because the person I had known up until then wasn't there anymore. And both of us went through different phases. At the very beginning, for instance, denial and anger were especially hard for Jesus. He wouldn't even be able to recognize that he had been sick. For me, the bargaining was one of the most difficult ones. I kept talking to myself, maybe I should have realized earlier that something was off, and then we would have been earlier to the hospital, and then. I think what's important in the end is that we have managed through all of this, and I am so proud of us for doing that. Yeah, and maybe I just share a little bit about, okay, where we are now. Here are a few pictures post-recovery. I would say, yeah, we have closed more or less this chapter a year ago when Jesus was able to go back to his work as an engineer. If I would have to describe it from the outside world, it looks like he has done a full recovery. We have our normal life together, which was, so to say, my only goal, milestone out of this. But his brain still works a little bit different than before, I would say. The way he connects the information is slightly different. He gets stressed more easily. He gets tired faster than before. So resting, managing through the stress through exercise are very important to him. And the lost memories from the recent years are gone, which can be at times frustrating and mentally challenging. They are not entirely gone, but it's like they are placed somewhere in his brain where he can't really access. So, yeah. It's important, I would say, to find strategies to adjust to all of this. He still undergoes different tests to check on the stage of his brain, and for me it's always hard because the first questions that come to mind are, will encephalitis come back? Will they discover finally that supposed brain tumor that may be or may have caused this? Will I notice if he ever gets sick again that he needs help? I think what's important is to discuss these fears together and be as open as possible about the disease and how it affects us. And that's also what we try to do in our close circle. We try to raise awareness to our friends and family, and I also think that's why the work and the aim of the Encephalitis International is so important. So I would say for everything that we have been through, we are more or less resuming our lives now, and for that I'm thankful, and yeah, I consider us to be very lucky. And just to close, I want to talk a little bit about some of my own learnings and takeaways out of this. Seek help in others, rely on your friends and family, but not everyone will be able to help you. I am thankful for the friends and the family that were there for us in difficult times, but just keep in mind not everyone will understand your new situation or know how to deal with it. Comparing to others can be very helpful, but it can also be discouraging because I find that each case of encephalitis is different and very complex. You will find things in common, but it's very unexpected how it may evolve. The third one, seek psychological counsel as a carer. And I like to put this like the same warning that they give on airplanes. You need to put on your oxygen mask before you put the oxygen mask to others. And we tend to forget, or at least I forgot about it as a carer many times. Vent if you need it. Don't be a rock. It sucks. You can't be positive every single day. And most importantly, if you need to vent, don't be angry at yourself for getting angry. Take one day at a time. Focus on small steps. I think if the doctors would have told me it would take 2 years, or it can take even longer, I don't think I would have been able to take it back then, which is why I think it's important to focus on small steps. And you may not be able to see the small steps. For us, it was also through some apps, for instance, that they recommended Jesus to improve, that we were able to see that even if I wasn't noticing, there was progress in there. And then don't forget about yourself as a carer. People tend to focus on the sick person, the person undergoing the encephalitis, but you are equally as important. Without you, the whole support network doesn't work. So the same advice that they give to sick people, do your sports, seek your psychological help, and so on, applies also to yourself. And for that, thank you for listening, and yeah, I hope it helps. Thank you.
Let me grab this mic and then I can ask you questions, I think. Thank you very much. Are you okay?
Yes.
You good? Good.
I managed. I didn't cry.
Yay! Not that it would matter if you did cry, because we're
indeed.
Safe space here. Yeah. In terms of that kind of message about being a carer and kind of having that opportunity to vent and things like that, how did you kind of come to that realization? Was there a point where you felt, I need to vent now, I need to kind of recognize that I'm in this as well and it's not just about my partner?
Yeah. For me, it was very useful to have time alone sometimes, and that's normally the time where I would also find myself able to reflect on what was going on. And I personally mainly called a very good friend of mine, and just both of us would go virtually. She's living in Spain, so we would go for a walk and just talk through things. And it's like a small tradition that we have kept up until nowadays, and I find it very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you think the pandemic had anything to do or made a difference? I suppose it's hard to know because you didn't have one, you've not had this experience, not in the pandemic, but do you think it made a difference in the process?
I definitely think it made a difference. I definitely think it made a difference because, first of all, for me it was very difficult to not basically know anything about what was going on for almost, I think it was 5 days that he was at the hospital. And whenever I would talk to him, he wouldn't be like, did they run tests on you? No, they didn't. And then after 5 days that I got a hold of the doctor, they explained everything that they were doing, and I was like, wow, okay, so you've been busy. And what also was very difficult is that we were very restricted in terms of, for instance, even leaving the country for holiday. Our mood wasn't the best when we started all of this process, and it just, it made it even like,
more isolating.
Yes.
Yeah, and difficult. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions or comments from the audience? Got anything there? Got a quiet bunch today. They're all very reflective, which I think the speakers are pleased about because they're like, yay, not too many questions. But yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know you've been able to chat to a lot of people, and I'm sure they'll want to talk to you again at the break. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.